If you want to go way back, as a child of a psychoanalyst and an ethnomusicologist growing up in Newton, Massachusetts, I think I was genetically predetermined to go into public radio. I'm Jake Shapiro, CEO of PRX, the Public Radio Exchange. It's definitely true that technology has disrupted all kinds of creative and storytelling fields. Certainly in music, it's been a major business disruption. It's been true in film and video, certainly true in newspapers and journalism dramatically in the last 10 to 15 years of internet history. And it's funny about radio. I mean, radio, broadcast radio, terrestrial radio is incredibly resilient, and it's been around for over a century, and it works incredibly well. And in fact, it's still something that people here in the US consume like crazy. I mean, something like 95% of the US population listens to radio every day. But nonetheless, some of the same things that have really made mobile and digital and internet distribution and business models so powerful are really changing and affecting the audio world. That huge amount of listening that happens on broadcast is moving over to internet and mobile. There's just so many more ways in which that makes sense in terms of how people navigate their worlds, and an entire generation that is just turning to their phones for access to everything is going to be finding it there. We're in the midst of a true renaissance of podcasting, which has been around in one form or another for over a decade, but had really been captive to kind of a edge case for early adopters and technophiles who could tether their iPods to their iTunes accounts and manage playlists and move files around. Audio had never been a really good fit for the web, but it's a really good fit for mobile, of course, because those are phones. And so suddenly you have hundreds of millions and now billions of radios essentially in everybody's pocket. It suddenly was possible for a mass experience of, people who might not have otherwise have understood or known about podcasting, wanting to hear great stories and finding it easy to get them. Compelling stories do offer this immersive experience, and in part it's just the nature of the human voice and how connected it is to our ancient selves. Hearing that literally in our ears and our heads, and having those voices in our heads, I think is deeply impactful. And I feel like a well-crafted story is something obviously that also really connects, and to have those two things following you around as you're listening, I think ends up being something that is as powerful as virtual reality or augmented reality. Audio, when you're talking about music, has really always been that. I mean, that emotional connection to music and sort of the soundtrack of your life ever since they introduced the Walkman a million years ago has been something really powerful. And I think what's fascinating is to see stories and information and news and spoken word start to occupy a similar domain, where for me at least it's both this emotional connection and an intellectual one that I think is incredibly interesting. It definitely feels like an important trend to see how listeners and audiences are relating and get passionate about the people they listen to, the voices, the stories, the hosts, the talent. And it's clear that there's just an entire generation who's excited about pushing for and paying for and contributing to something that they love. We think there's a lot of different ways in which crowdfunding will evolve, and that is both a sign of where we've come from in public radio and what a major future trend is. There's ways of saying that you might support a single artist, or you might support a single storyline, or you might want to collaborate with other listeners and fund something brand new. I think it'd be interesting to see how storytellers and creators of the future start to make use of the fact that people are in these different environments as they understand which environments they're in and are crafting stories for those contexts. I think there's all kinds of opportunities to think differently about how we're matching the audio experience to the physical experience. Storytelling from around the campfire is as old as it gets, and this is just being translated into how we live our lives today.